Senator, the LA County police say that they have it under control.
There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the President of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion by arresting people who are showing up for their immigration hearings.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
The media covering for another communist street riot. If only something like that had happened before in this country. It almost seems like it did. I don't know. Let's ask Liz about it. Joining me now, the great Liz Collin, investigative reporter for Alpha News. Liz, man, I'm not even that old, although I am getting gray and bald, and I feel like I remember coverage like this before. Do I remember that right?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think perhaps I have gray hair after living through that from 5 years ago as well. It really is like Groundhog Day, I think, for so many of us in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area for watching this play out in LA. You have the same rhetoric, right? The same buzzwords that are being spewed by the mainstream media, almost as if nothing was learned from just 5 years ago in Minneapolis. Politicians, again, fanning the flames. Waiting for the facts to play out. And we actually had kind of a similar situation. People were trying to spark this just a few days ago in Minneapolis. You had the federal government. This was a HSI raid, Homeland Security investigations. They went into multiple businesses across the Twin Cities. This is related to a cartel-linked investigation, human smuggling, hundreds of pounds of fentanyl, we're hearing from our sources. Instead of letting law enforcement go in and do their jobs, you had the socialist-controlled city council of Minneapolis go ahead and put the word out to their activist friends to fight these officers at every turn, really creating a spectacle just last week in Minneapolis and waiting for the facts to play out. And then you have the rhetoric from the governor of Minnesota talking about how chaotic this was. Now you have the Minneapolis Police Department bowing down once again. They're saying now that no Minneapolis police personnel shall respond to any immigration enforcement related activities. They cannot assist with crowd control. This is just a memo that came out, I should say, just a couple of days after all of this in Minneapolis. And you're right, Jesse. I think there's a lot of concern. We kind of take our orders from California, it seems, in a way, politically here in Minnesota. So I think people are watching this all closely here.
Liz, we'll take a step back from these specific stories for a moment and zoom out a little bit. It's so weird for me to hear that about Minnesota taking its cues from California. I realize Minnesota can be a little bonkers politically, Jesse the Body Ventura and whatnot, but I mean, I grew up pike fishing in Minnesota. It never struck me as Southern California, not Los Angeles, but gosh, in some ways it seems as bad or worse. How did that happen?
Excellent question. And we'll have to go perhaps fishing for walleye or bass. That's what I prefer, Jesse, here in the land of 10,000 lakes. But I think you're right that it's the land of 10,000 lies. It's kind of how I refer to it now politically, which is really sad, I think, for so many of us to see. You have a radical element that the media seems to give so much of a platform to, and these activist groups have done so much damage in the metro, and also have created, I think, some fear. We saw that 5 years ago, certainly a fear for other people speaking out and pushing back, and we're living the consequences of all that now to this day.
Liz, what parallels are you seeing beyond the politician rhetoric between LA and Minnesota? Because from the outside looking in, and now that we get more and more details, it looks like all this stuff is paid for and organized. It never felt organic to me when they were throwing bricks for St. George Floyd. It doesn't feel organic now. This is all just paid for, right?
Yeah, in the wake of the George Floyd riots, it was 1,500 businesses either damaged or destroyed. So many of them never rebuilt and left town for good reason. But you definitely did see the outside money pouring into all of this. It's interesting, just in the news now here years later, you have these activist groups sort of crop up in the wake to take the place of law enforcement. Again, the Minneapolis Police Department down still nearly 40% from where it once was. There are these violence interrupters groups, or these peace activists, if you will. Some of them were actually just criminally indicted last week. So we see the fraud on a mass scale here in Minnesota, and a lot of these groups are perpetuating that, kind of knowing that this is a place where people can be, taken advantage of. Let's see how long we get away with this. And in some areas, thankfully, this is finally catching up to them.
Liz, there are places in the country that appear to be ready to bounce back somewhat politically. They've kind of cratered out a little bit, and the people are waking up so tired of the crime, tired of the car gets broken into every night. Surely Minnesota's on the cusp of something like that, right?
I think so. I mean, I think that, I walked away and left mainstream media a few years ago, just sort of sick and tired of these narratives. But I will say that I'm constantly we're constantly getting news tips, or constantly thanked for speaking up, and I think that is kind of indicative of the time here. You do see people more organized and being willing to push back. Something happening at our state capitol just today, in fact. They are voting to take away health care from illegal immigrants. That conversation is happening, and you have people protesting that in Minnesota, despite the vast majority of people in polling not supporting giving illegals free health care in Minnesota. But I do see the pendulum swinging back to sanity. So there is hope, Jesse.
All right. Speaking of hope, Derek Chauvin, he's back in the news. He's back in the news because the rumor mill, I don't know that it's more substantive than that, seems to be flying that he might get himself a pardon. What have you heard? Your sources are better than mine.
Yeah, we were following all of these developments as well, that perhaps President Trump would grant Derek Chauvin a pardon right around that 5-year anniversary mark of the George Floyd riots, the death and heart attack of George Floyd, as we refer to it, which is exactly what it was. This is all really was always about facts, this case, getting out the facts and pointing out the lies. I always say it's never up to me as far as a pardon being issued or whatnot. But it is a bit of a relief to see people pushing for that. This is the case involving 4 police officers. We, in fact, just put out a series a couple of weeks ago now that I encourage people to watch on thefallofminneapolis.com. It's sort of the what has happened since, including an interview with Derek Chauvin, what has happened since, including Alex King, also, who was released from prison just a few months ago. The Black police officer who arrested George Floyd, that the media seemed to never want to talk about. Well, he's back actually in this area now, and we were there when he got off his airplane and greeted his mom again after spending nearly 3 years in prison as a young man, and what has happened since to the city and what has happened since to these families. So I encourage people to watch. We are expecting perhaps something later this fall, as far as a state is kind of trying to go ahead and grant something, a new trial. He's still working on that, Derek Chauvin and his new attorney. So we continue to follow the developments there at thefallofminneapolis.com.
Liz, next walleye trip is on me. Fallofminneapolis.com. Go look at her stuff. I appreciate you, Liz. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.